What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Party on Broad. This is our first show covering the 2023 NFL Draft. I got two amazing content creators helping us break down the top 10 targets for the Eagles in the first round. My first guy, he is LJ of the Kelly Green Hour podcast. What's going on, LJ?
What's up? I'm looking forward to this. I know it's a little early with our 8-1 birds, but having that Saints pick, it doesn't hurt to start looking early into the 2023 draft.
Absolutely. And for the first time ever, hopefully the first of many, my man Coyle from Pick Swap Media, Ryan Coyle. What's going on, Ryan?
What's up, guys? Happy to be here. Thanks for the opportunity. And like LJ said, excited. This is kind of a unique draft for the Eagles, having the Saints pick, which potentially could be in the top 10, and then hopefully us as a Super Bowl team potentially in the back half of the first round. So it's kind of cool to get a wide-ranging view of all these prospects. So I'm excited to get into it.
I love it. All right, let's jump right in because we have a lot to cover here. Here we have Tankathon's kind of draft order. As of now, the Eagles would have the fourth pick from the New Orleans Saints, as well as, of course, the 32nd pick.
Before the 31st, because Miami doesn't have a first-round pick this year.
Nailed it. Absolutely, totally forgot about that. We have a comment here, Rodney, saying, let's go Eagles. Guys, if you're watching us live, we're going to be covering a lot of prospects. We're going to count down our top 10. Who do you like? Let us know in the comments. Let's jump right into just positions of need. On the YouTube channel, I put out some votes and our polls to be voted on. The fans voted. And according to the fans, the top 3 positions of need for the Eagles is edge, cornerback, and interior defensive line. I'll throw it to you first, Ryan. Do you agree or disagree with those rankings?
I would have to agree. I think the Eagles, I kind of get into this throughout my 10 players, but I think the Eagles have a really solid defensive line as of right now. But I think they need to continue that infusion of youth and add maybe a potential like game-changing piece. You look at this roster: Fletcher Cox, Javon Hargrave, Robert Quinn. These are all guys that potentially might not be there next year. And then you have Josh Sweat, Hassan Reddick. I think are 2 really solid players, but more of like B-plus guys. If we get that Saints pick and we're up in that top 5 range, you could add a potential A-plus type defender on the line and one of those real game-changing pieces that are on all elite defenses across the league.
All right, what about you, Ajay?
I 100% agree with Ryan.
Oh, wow.
But you think about it, if you look at the Eagles' defensive line, while they have names there, they've underperformed. Let's be real. We saw it against Washington. They got bullied against not a good offensive line. They got bullied against Houston. They're going to go up against Indy this week, who has a better offensive line than the last 2 teams they played with, one of the better running backs in the league. And I know they went out, they signed Linval Joseph, and they signed Ndamukong Suh. I think Joseph will play. Suh would be tough for him to play. I mean, he signed on a Thursday. They got to go to Indy, Saturday in 2 days on a Saturday. So it might be tough to get him into the lineup. But if you think about the structure of how this team likes to be built, how Howie Roseman likes to build the team, it goes back to Andy Reid and Joe Banner. They built from the inside out. So it's going to be offensive line, it's going to be defensive line, and then they'll build out. And when it comes to cornerback, we obviously have Slay. Bradbury's going to get paid too much money to come back. It's unfortunate and it's actually good because that means he's had a great year for the Eagles, but they're not going to be able to afford him because he's going to get number 1 corner money. So it's going to start with the defensive line, and then they'll figure out, the quote-unquote skill positions, maybe in the back end of the first or in the second day of the draft.
Absolutely agree. I couldn't agree more. I love the top 3 here. I'm not necessarily, of course, if we're talking about the first round, and we're going to get into this as we count down my top 10, I have a pretty firm stance on the first round and who I'm taking. It's all depending on the board and BPA. So that top 3, I really agree with. But as we'll kind of break it down, that might not necessarily be the case because I do think there are tiers in this top 10. Whether they stick with this or trade back, I do kind of have some move around in these picks. So let's jump right in, guys. Here we go. We're going to lead off with LJ. He's going to give us his number 10 fit or target for the Philadelphia Eagles, and we'll go from there. So let's get started, man. Go ahead, LJ.
So you're going to see a trend with mine in terms of position and even conference. But this for my number 10 pick, it's actually the position. Brian Bresee, I think that's how you say his name, the tackle from Clemson.
Brian Bresee.
I mean, everybody knows his story with what happened to his sister and all that at Clemson, but he's also a game changer for Clemson. When he wasn't in there for those couple games, they struggled on the defensive line. And as I've mentioned, and as we're going to probably mention time and time again tonight, the Eagles are going to want to, as Ryan said, they're going to want to get younger at the defensive line. Fletcher Cox most likely won't be here. Brandon Graham, Robert Quinn, maybe Javon Hargrave. So we know we have Jordan Davis. We know we have Josh Sweat, who ever since he got that contract, he's been an underachiever. Let's be real. Ever since he got that contract, he hasn't been. Yeah, he had a good play last week, but he doesn't. He shows up in spurts. He's not a consistent guy. Hassan Reddick, he had a good 3-game stretch, but for the most part, he's kind of disappeared as well. So they're going to want to try to get a bunch of guys there, and I'm going to focus a lot on the lines. I think at least half of my players on my top 10 are on the defensive line, and I think Bresee could be a good leader for this team. Put him right next to Jordan Davis, put him next to Milton Williams, and we have something there.
Love it. What about you, Ryan?
So the way I did my rankings, I kind of have the 6 picks or 6 of my top 10 in the back half or in the back half of the round, which would be for the Eagles pick. And then the top 4 I kind of have for the potential Saints pick, and like the top 12, I'm expecting that. So my number 10 guy, I'm going to go with Michael Mayer, the tight end out of Notre Dame.
Wow, I love it.
6'4", 265 pounds, a real good athlete, moves really good for that size, very good red zone threat and up the seam. Very Dallas Goedert-esque. This is more of like a luxury pick as we still have Dallas under contract for quite a few more years. I'm expecting this pick to be anywhere between 28 and 31, and I think we could get really good value here. They should be taking best available player if they're picking in that range. And Goddard can be a bit of an injury-prone guy. He's missed games in every season except his rookie year. He played all 16, and this year, obviously, he just had that shoulder injury. Well, he'll be out a little bit more. So we're kind of thin at tight end. We have Stoll and Calcaterra behind him, and then Tyree Jackson, who I'm excited to kind of see what he can bring if he has this expanded role. But having 2 tight ends like Goddard and Mayer in the lineup, that could really make this offense even more creative with Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown out on the outside to go with the running game as well. And Mayer's had some really nice performances this year for a Notre Dame team that's pretty inept in the passing game. He's going over 300 yards or over 100 yards 3 different times, 7 touchdowns. So a real nice presence in the red zone. Like I said, it would kind of be like a luxury pick, but I think just another fun toy for this offense.
Somewhere Mark Henry Jr. is pounding the table like, yes, yes. He loves him some Notre Dame. Michael Mayer is a great talent, absolutely great talent. Definitely first round worthy. I love that. I'm gonna go with a guy for my number 10. It's he's arguably the biggest riser so far in the draft process, and he's out of Penn State. And this is Olu Fashanu. He's a tackle prospect. I think one of the biggest, most underrated needs for the Eagles is at right tackle. This dude I can't get a read on him yet. He's really highly ranked according to a lot of NFL draft analysts. And I've seen him in the top 10, top 15. The dude is super raw. He has only had 9 career starts. But he's been really good in those 9 starts. And the best part about this, besides the physical measurables, all that kind of stuff, is he's only going to be 19 years old his first year in the NFL. We know Howie is always looking 2 years, 3 years down the line. This is a guy that I think would be really interesting paired alongside Jeff Stoutland. He's a very high-level athlete, great athleticism, natural talent in pass protection. He is legit arguably the best pass protector in this year's class. He's allowed 0 sacks, 1 quarterback hit, and only 6 hurries in nearly 300 pass blocking snaps for Penn State this year. So this is kind of an interesting name. Like, this would be one of those, like, if he's there and the Eagles maybe trade back and the trade back doesn't go as we thought, and he's there, pure talent-wise, best player available-wise, I would be okay with this draft selection. So I'm going Olu Fashanu out of Penn State. I can't get a read on this guy, but I think he's definitely going to be one of those like big time combine guys that's going to be arguably top 10. So that rounds out our number 10s. Any reactions to that, guys?
Kind of expected where we all went, and while we all have different paths where we're going, we're going to be around the same areas, I think.
Yeah, so, right. The future at right tackle is certainly something that they have to start evaluating, and if they're picking at this late in the first round potentially, that definitely could be a position for like a developmental kind of guy.
Especially after Lane Johnson said that he's probably only going to play for 3 more years, maybe. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't surprise me that they'll look ahead.
Let's roll on to number 9. We'll go to you, Ryan. Who's your number 9?
So number 9, I'm going to slot in safety out of Alabama, Brian Branch. Comes in 6 foot, 193 pounds. And he's a guy who I think has really taken his game to the next level these last 5 weeks. You look at his stats these past 5 weeks against four of these have been against ranked teams. He's had 9 tackles, 4 tackles, 9 tackles, 8 tackles. So this is a guy who's not afraid to go down and play the run. And I think that is something that the Eagles long-term kind of need at that safety spot. And you can never really go wrong with an Alabama defensive back. 9 out of 10 times these guys are going to hit. Long term, I hope we're able to retain Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. You would think that after his amazing play this year, we're going to look to re-sign him, but you have to keep in the back of your head that a Jalen Hurts extension is coming up soon. So you have to kind of evaluate which guys really do we want to give this money to. And I'm not that confident in Marcus Epps going forward. He has had some nice moments this year, but I think we can improve that safety spot. I like safeties being able to both play deep and near the line in all kind of aspects of the game and help in run support. And Chauncey Gardner-Johnson has 6 interceptions this year, really has shown that ball hawking ability. Let's get another safety that's more comfortable playing up towards the line of scrimmage and who's not afraid to play the run. So I think Brian Branch, coming from Alabama, always well coached under Nick Saban, I think he'll kind of be a seamless day one starter in the NFL and would be, if they do bring back CGJ, a really nice pairing long term.
Brian Branch out of Alabama. I love it. What about you?
Branch reminds me, and he's not as good, but of Minkah Fitzpatrick and what he does for the Alabama defense and what he does for Nick Saban. And you'll see it later. I have 4 Alabama players on my list, so being a big Alabama fan, I like that pick. I went with a different guy in the secondary, but I like that pick.
I did safety rankings before this college football season, and I had Jordan Battle and I had Malachi Moore over Brian Branch. And I
thought Malachi Moore was going to be good. He's been disappointing this year a little bit.
Look at Eli Ricks. He can't even get on the freaking field, man.
He gets on the field last week and he gets hurt in the first play.
Yeah.
Jesus.
There's talent all over there. It's been nuts. Up and down like crazy. Who is your number 9, LJ?
So I went on the offensive side of the ball, and it's a position that a lot of people might not think we're looking at. I'm going Kayshon Boutte, the wide receiver from LSU.
Wow.
Why did I go him? Look, we have A.J. Brown. We have Devontae Smith. Put him as the 3rd receiver instead of Quez Watkins. Now, Boutte hasn't had a great year. 38 catches, 388 yards, only 1 touchdown. He was like in Brian Kelly's doghouse early in the year. Jalen Daniels isn't – he's got them to the SEC championship game, but I don't think he's that great of a quarterback. So maybe just the repetition between the two, just the communication between the two hasn't been good. But this guy, I'm thinking ahead. I'm thinking Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. He can be that good, I think. He has a chance to be that type of weapon. And look, imagine this 3 receiver set out there with Brown, Smith, and Boutte. And as Ryan said, we're gonna have to pay Jalen Hurts, so we're not gonna be able to bring in a bunch of guys from the outside and pay them money. Get a young receiver in here, give him the rookie contract, and let him go out there and ball. So Kayshon Boutte.
Kayshon to LJ. That's an interesting pick as well. I'm going to roll with this selection. I'm going cornerback. I'm going cornerback out of South Carolina. The guy I'm talking about here is Cam Smith. Cam Smith is a really, really intriguing prospect that has had a really good season. Dave, he says, "What's up, fellas? What's going on, Dave?" But Cam Smith, out of South Carolina, like J.C. Horn, not as aggressive, not as physical, but production is right there. He's only allowed 9 catches on 22 targets for 137 yards this season. Last year, he was just as good. He's got really good size, 6'1", just under 200 pounds, really good athleticism, ball skills, really fluid hips. This is a guy I think is scheme versatile, and I know Gannon and Howie are absolutely going to love that about Cam Smith. Cornerback's really interesting in this class. I think there's one, and then after that first tier, which we'll talk about that first tier, there's a bunch of guys that I think could fill anywhere like first round, second round, and it's really deep. And I think Cam Smith is one of those guys that could go anywhere from like back half of the first round to maybe round 2, but yeah, this is a guy that checks off a lot of boxes. I could easily see him being a first round pick. Cam Smith, good size, good athleticism, like this guy. So that rounds out our number 9. Let me write this one down. And let's jump right in. Let's keep going to 8. And I'm going to lead us off. I'm going to go Joey Porter Jr. with this one. I'm going back-to-back cornerbacks. Joey Porter Jr., another Penn State dude. I'm actually not a Penn State fan.
Me either.
But I've really liked Joey Porter Jr. Coming into this, I was actually surprised this college football season to see him like ranked so low. I always thought he was my CB2. He's a really, really good talent. He can play, up at the line. He can really do well in coverage. He also shines during top-notch competition. He shut down Ohio State 2 years ago. This year, he's been absolutely ridiculous. I think Gannon would love Joey Porter Jr. He's got great size. I could see him just thriving under Darius Slay for a year. I definitely think he's got round 1 potential. And he plays with an aggressiveness that I think Eagles fans would really love. So for me, Joey Porter Jr. out of Penn State is my number 8. I'm going to throw it back to you, Ryan.
Yeah, so I was very tempted to throw a receiver on this list, but I just can't envision this front office going essentially a receiver in the first round for 4 straight drafts. Because if you think about it, Rager, Smitty, and then A.J. Brown was a first-round pick basically as well. I can't see them using a first-round 4 straight years. So instead, I'll throw another wrinkle in here for offensive piece, and I'm going to go with Bijan Robinson, the running back out of Texas.
All right.
6 foot, 220 pounds. This is another kind of pick where if we do happen to win the Super Bowl, we're picking at 31, and he's still sitting on there on the board. I think it's a talent that you wouldn't want to pass up, especially with Miles Sanders being a free agent. I don't see them giving him a big contract. I see like a lower tier team in need of a running game to like overpay for him. I think a lot of running backs could do what Miles Sanders does in this scheme with this offensive line in front of him. And I think Bijan can maybe even do it at a higher level. He might be the most complete back in this entire class, and his numbers really match his skill set. I think he has great contact balance, vision. You see the way he can cut between the tackles. It's a real shake and bake kind of guy, and he can hit the home run as well. 7 games this year with over 100 rushing yards, has over 300 receiving yards as well. So he's productive out of the backfield catching the football. And like I said, I don't think they're going to sign Miles back to a long-term deal. I see somebody else kind of paying him that money, and that would open up a spot that you need as a premier running back number 1. So if we're picking late in the back half of the first round, which hopefully we are after hoisting up the Lombardi Trophy, and you can bring in a running back like B.J. Robinson to pair with Jalen Hurts for the future, it's just going to make the running game even more dangerous. So I really like this kid out of Texas.
Dude is a monster, an absolute monster. I would be shocked if he's there at 32. I'd be shocked if he falls out of the top 10 at this point. He's that good. I would never waste a draft capital on a running back in the top 10. That's a different conversation. But LJ, who is your number? Where are we at? 10? Number 8.
Same position as Ryan.
Okay.
I'm going Jahmyr Gibbs out of Alabama. This is going to be with our second first-round pick. How this guy went to Georgia Tech And I don't know how anybody else didn't get him before he went to Georgia Tech. Now, Alabama, if he wasn't on this Alabama offense, I don't know how they move the ball a lot of times.
Yeah.
If you look at the Alabama offense, we're used to seeing receivers run all over the place. Their receivers can't get open right now, but Jahmyr Gibbs is good. He can catch the football. He can run the football. He has speed. He can get into the open field. And this guy would fit. You talk about how Bijan could probably fit with Jalen Hurts. I think Gibbs would be a perfect fit in this offense with these receivers, with Jalen Hurts, with this offensive line. I mean, give me Gibbs and what he would be able to provide catching the football. I think he'd be a better receiving back than Miles Sanders. He'd be patient with this offensive line, and he would be a home run threat every time he touched the football. So I'm going Jahmyr Gibbs from Alabama.
Absolutely love that selection. He's been one of my favorites. He's like, I'm going to be making, these first round rankings and things like that, but I also do my day 2 rankings. Like if he's out of that day 1 and available day 2, I do everything to move up and make sure I lock in Jahmyr Gibbs. I agree, LJ. I love Jahmyr Gibbs. He's one of my favorite prospects in this entire class. Wow, I'm surprised how much offense there is here so far through 3 rounds. That's pretty interesting. We've got Gibbs, we've got Boutte, we've got Fashanu, and Michael Mayer. All are great prospects. 100% great. Terrific prospects. Let's roll in to number 7, I think. Lead us off, Ryan.
So my 7th is actually Jahmyr Gibbs as well. If we don't get Gibbs, I'd settle for Robinson. Kind of just piggybacking off what you guys were saying, 5'11", 200-pound back. While I love Robinson and think he's going to be a really good NFL player, I'm a little higher on Gibbs. I think his long-term potential is a little bit higher. I see just a lot of Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara type with him, where I think Nick Sirianni, where I was talking about having some fun with Michael Mayer, I think imagine him getting to use Jahmyr Gibbs all throughout the rotation on offense and line him up in different formations. I think he's just such a dangerous guy. I can watch him just right now running those angle routes out of the backfield on linebackers and making them miss in the open field. Averages 6.5 yards per carry, has that home run ability, that home run hitting explosion and speed, and then great hands, has 40 catches on the year, 370 receiving yards. This guy is going to be a high-level fantasy football player in PPR leagues. I think he's going to catch like 4 or 5 balls a game in his NFL career. I'm just picturing a pretty big role for him, and the Eagles really finding ways to use him.
Yeah.
Going with guys like A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert, Smitty, in terms of being able to excel when it comes to yards after the catch. I think that's what Gibbs does the best and would make him a super dangerous piece for us. Yeah,
coming into this year, like I thought we would see more Kenny Gainwell used in the passing game. And we haven't really seen that. We haven't seen him really break out. But Gibbs in an RPO game, like there's definitely so many creative ways that Sirianni and Steichen would be able to like utilize a home run threat like that, dude. Absolutely love Gibbs.
He can return. He can return as well. I don't know if you'd like your starting
What
running back.
do you mean return? I don't know what that means. Return?
Be like a piece in the return game.
I'm just joking. Special teams mean nothing to me now. I don't.
Because Covey
means nothing to the Eagles.
Covey's been
Exactly.
a fair catch and go down, but that would be another kind of explosive piece for
We
us.
should have cut Covey 5 weeks ago.
No, he sucks. Yeah, I'm basically numb to special teams at this point. My number 7. Wait, LJ. I'll go. I'm going to get into the meat of my rankings, and I'm going to go with the guy that I absolutely love. Like my top 7, I had no issues ranking my top 7. When it came to 8, 9, 10 on my list, I was juggling different guys, and it was really difficult. But leading off number 7 is a dude named Tyree Wilson out of Texas Tech. This guy is an absolute monster. I love this guy. He's hands down my number 1 dude on my Senior Bowl prospect to watch list. So if you're a Senior Bowl lover like myself, this guy is going to be there and just tear it up. Expect that. He's strong enough to take on NFL tackles from a 5 technique position. He's got agility and lateral movement to play on the edge. He's got 47 pressures this season. He had 37 last year, 6'6", 7-foot plus wingspan. This dude is gonna blow up the NFL Combine. I have one guy that I compared to Trey Walker. I was all on the Trey Walker train last year. This guy's gonna follow 100% that same mold here, where he's just gonna generate a ton of buzz. He's got a lot of raw power. And I just think, this is a guy that plays with a lot of aggression and power in his game, and Eagles fans would love this dude. So Tyree Wilson's going to start my defensive line train that you're going to see within my top 7. So, LJ, who is your number 7?
So this will be my last offensive player before we get into the top 6. And I'm going Peter Skoronski, the offensive tackle from Northwestern. This would be with that Saints pick if it was between 5 and 10. He potentially could go top 5 too. And this could be, remember, we drafted Lane Johnson 4th overall. Now it'd be hard for Skoronski to be a starter with the who we have on the offensive line unless he can play some guard. But as I mentioned before, we're talking about Lane Johnson, who's probably going to retire in 2 to 3 years. We already know Kelsey maybe retire after this year, maybe, but he's been talking about retirement for the last 5 years and has been back. And as you guys have said, we said earlier, the Eagles like to build from the inside out, and it doesn't hurt to have the depth on the offensive line for injury potential. Look, Jack Driscoll has done an admirable job when had to go in there, but Skoronski's better. So I think if the Eagles, that Saints pick were to be between 5 and 10, and Anderson and Carter and some of these guys were gone, this would be a pick that I could see Howie Roseman making.
All right, Skoronski to LJ. Dave says, can we have LJ pick at number 3? LOL. I mean, he's done really good these last 2 drafts, right? Like, I think he's done more than all right. I lied. I'm just going to lead us off here. My defensive line train takes just one little stop, and I'm just going to piggyback off of my man LJ because I also had Peter Skoronski out of Northwestern here for my number 6. A lot of comparisons to Rashawn Slater here. Dude has short arms, but short arms mean absolutely nothing, man. Rashawn Slater's he kind of had, I think, the same kind of negatives, but nothing is holding that dude back. He's an absolute stud. What I love about Skoronski is obviously like you could play him day one at right guard and wait for Lane Johnson to retire and throw him to right tackle and be absolutely
unless he's good like Landon Dickerson. Remember, Dickerson was supposed to be the center of the future.
Yeah, that's
and he's becoming all-pro left guard.
Yep. He absolutely, he's versatile, which we know how he loves these kind of dudes that can fill in wherever he can play pretty much anywhere across, and he has experience anywhere across the offensive line. Has a lot of power about him. Here's some stats so far. On 383 pass blocking snaps, he's allowed only 5 pressures this season. He plays with a mean streak, which I know this Eagles offensive line, like Jason Kelsey and Lane Johnson, would absolutely love. And here's some PFF stuff. He's got a 93.1 pass blocking grade. That is the top mark in the nation among his peers. So Peter Skoronski is my next one. Ryan, who is yours?
So we're going to go to the trenches for me here. My first pick up front, and that's going to be Brian Bresee, the defensive tackle out of Clemson that we've talked about a little bit already. I'm not sure if this was mentioned earlier, but he is the former number 1 overall recruit coming out of high school. So some of his numbers during his time at Clemson haven't been amazing, but the talent's there, and he's not so much a numbers getter, but more so just a game wrecker. And when you turn on the film, when you watch Clemson play, you notice his presence. He has struggled with injuries a little bit at Clemson, and I think he dealt with like a blood clot in his leg the past few weeks. So that could be a thing that teams maybe even check him off their board, or he just gets pushed down the first round. So maybe he's there kind of at the back end of the first round and you get a steal. But looking at the defensive line, as I touched on at the beginning, the Eagles need to add some more youth up front. Josh Sweat, Jordan Davis, Hassan Reddick, and Milton Williams all be under contract for the next few seasons. But Quinn, Graham, Hargrave, Fletcher Cox, they could all be gone next year. So we need to add some pieces up there, more youth on the line, and Howie loves to invest up front. So Brissett, I would not be complaining at all if we came away with him with one of our first-round picks.
So I am the worst when it comes to name pronunciations. Is it Brissett or is it Breesy? Like, I always thought it was Breesy.
That's what I thought too, but on the broadcast, I've heard Brissett, but at this time, I've heard everything a million different times. So just call him Brian B.
All right, Brian B. It is. I like it a lot. Dave, I love how this is, or LJ, I love how this is becoming a thing. Dave says LJ doesn't like the number 3. Still doesn't know why. I rip LJ every single opportunity about the Sixers. He's not a Sixers fan.
Never will be.
It's a joke, and now he's getting comments about it. I love it so much. Where are we at? LJ, I think you are up.
We're on pick number 6?
Yeah.
All right. So this guy is I'm putting him on my list, and it has nothing to do with his play this year because he apparently can't get on the field. I'm going Eli Ricks. Now,
wow, okay.
I know you mentioned Cam Smith. I have another cornerback who I know you love, and I have him later. But I think Eli Ricks, I don't know what it is. If he would have stayed at LSU, he could probably be a starter there. I don't understand why he can't get on the field at Alabama. I get that Nick Saban has his guys, and the defense can be complex to a certain extent. Maybe he just can't get it. Also, the defensive coordinator is an idiot and sucks. I wish they would get rid of Pete Golden. But I think that Eli could come in here and, just like you said about Cam Smith, learn under Darius Slay. He start on the outside. We have Maddox in the slot, and then in 2 or 3 years when Slay's out of here, Ricks will have had the experience of playing, and he can just slide right into the number 1 corner spot. I get this year hasn't been the best year for Ricks. And he can't get on the field. He can't stay healthy when he is on the field. But I think Ricks can prove he'll prove it at the combine. And I think if he gets drafted, he'll prove it as a number 2 before becoming a number 1. So I'm going to go Eli Ricks.
I love that pick. I'm still a fan of him. He coming into this college football season, he was my number 2, right behind Keely Ringo.
And it bothers me because watching, I think it was last week, number 3 for Alabama, Arnold. Why the hell he was on the field and has been on the field for the last couple of weeks and Ricks couldn't makes no sense. There's no way Ricks is worse than that guy. So something has to be up with him and Saban, him and Golding that's not allowing him to get on the field.
I fully agree. Yeah, there's something that has to be. There's something else. So Eli Ricks to LJ, and that rounds out our top 6, I believe. Let me share my screen.
Our bottom 5?
Yeah, there it is. All right, Eli Ricks. All right, so we are rolling into our top 5 here. I'm going to go just because we already kind of talked about him, but Brian B. out of Clemson is my number 5 here. Absolutely love this guy. I think, interior defensive line is such a huge need for the Eagles. I mean, look at, just like everyone already said, but you look at Hargrave, who's probably not going to be here next year. You look at Cox, who absolutely sucks at this point. Tui Pelotu absolutely sucks at this point. I don't even know why they play him anymore.
Well, he's hurt now, so
good, because he wasn't giving them anything. You wouldn't even know. So for me, Brian B would give you a guy that can play 3 downs, play pretty much anywhere across the defensive line. He doesn't have the crazy numbers, but you can just see, if you just watch the tape, you can see how disruptive this dude really is. Obviously, it starts with his physical measurables. He's a big guy. I think he fit really well in Jonathan Gannon's system, who probably won't even be here next year. But
Vic Fangio,
probably. But regardless, I think it's a real fit next to Jordan Davis. He can play a 4-3. In a 4-3, he can play in a 3-4, where have you. He can get in the backfield. He can attack the passer. Very instinctive, great pass rusher. Brian B is my number 5. I'm going to throw it to you, LJ. Who is your number 5?
I'm going to stick in the Alabama secondary, and I'm going to go Jordan Battle, the safety. I know Ryan went with Brian Branch, and we've talked about Malachi Moore, but I mean, Jordan Battle is a guy that's all over the field for Alabama. And again, this defense has underachieved this year because coming in, there was a lot of people saying this could be one of Saban's best defenses, but that obviously hasn't happened. Tennessee throwing up 50 points on them, and LSU putting up a bunch of points on them. But I think Jordan Battle could come in and again put him next to CJGJ. I'm not a big fan of Marcus Epps. Let Marcus Epps be the third safety, if anything. And we can have Battle and Gardner Johnson be the starters. I hope they do re-sign Gardner Johnson, and his numbers going up weekly because he just keeps picking balls off. He may miss tackles, he may be out of position every once in a while, but Gardner Johnson seems to be a magnet for the football right now. And I think, and then Jordan Battle is very physical. He'll come up and hit somebody in the mouth on the run. So I think that they would be a good complement for each other. So I'm going Jordan Battle.
Love it. Jordan Battle for LJ. Ryan, who's your number 5?
I'll stick with the secondary theme here, and I'll go with Joey Porter Jr., corner.
Nice.
6'2", about 200 pounds. I think cornerback is the hardest position, I think, to get right in the NFL, other than the quarterback spot. They're just so hard to come by, and I feel like they're so valuable. When you get a good one, you really want to take it or, stick with them, sign them in free agency. That's really, I think, the reason the Eagles defense, for the most part, has been so dominant for most of the year, because they've had great corner play. This is, I'm 23 years old. In my lifetime, this is probably, other than like back in 2004.
You've seen nothing yet, buddy.
This is the best secondary I've seen by the Eagles, talent wise, and definitely corner wise. But this is another.
You don't remember Brian Dawkins and Michael Lewis with Sheldon and Lito? Yeah, you don't remember those days.
That was 04, 05, 06. I was 5, 6 years old. That was right when I started getting into all this. So
love it.
But this is another group where I think they need to add some youth. Porter Jr. I think is a real high level corner. Bradbury, I think, like you said, I believe at the beginning, LJ, I think he's going to get a pretty big deal somewhere like a 3-year 45, 3-year 50 million type thing, where we can't afford that, especially with the Hurts extension coming up. And then Slay has a pretty high cap number over these next few years. I definitely think he'll be back next year. But if he does have a down year, play declines, he could be a cap casualty the following seasons. Spot where they need to add some more youth, because other than Slay and Bradbury at the top, you got Maddox in there at the slot. He's banged up time to time, and there's nothing really kind of convincing behind them. So corner is definitely one of the main areas of concern, and I think a big target spot for them in this draft.
Joey Porter Jr. Love that selection, Ryan. Love it, love it, love it. Edge of Philly Sports, what's going on? Says, I really like Jordan Battle. All right, so we are at number 4. Yeah, hold on. Joey Porter Jr. for Ryan. Let's roll on to number 4. And that starts off with one of my favorite players in this draft. And that is Mr. Keely Ringo. He doesn't play.
Why does it have the Alabama logo?
I don't know. I just saw that. I was like, it's not Alabama. It's Georgia. That's weird. All right. But anyway, Keely Ringo is awesome. He was my CB1 heading into this year. He's still my CB1 at this point. Just dominant. He's only got 3 pass breakups this year, but like you can't look at that because nobody throws at him. He's just a straight stud, man. He just doesn't see a lot of opportunities. That's really what the stats come down to. He's only been targeted 27 times this year, which ranks 331st in the FBS, which is absolutely bananas. First thing about Keely Ringo, great size, excellent athleticism. This dude has 4.3 speed back in high school. He can routinely press receivers on the line of scrimmage. He has no problem going vertical with faster receivers. And that's really where he shines. Ringo downfield in the red zone, playing with that aggressive mindset against bigger guys. He is an absolute CB1 potential stud. That aggressive mindset, I know Eagles fans would absolutely love. He's also a really good tackler. He's really good at, attacking the quarterback in blitzes, which we know, like when Gannon does do those third down blitzes, when it happens, we didn't see a lot of it last week. But when he does, it is pretty successful, and he would really fit well with that. So for me, there's a guy that can really check off pretty much every single box as a CB1. Having this guy play a year under Darius Slay would be a dream come true. Keely Ringo is by far my favorite secondary or defensive back in this draft. So I'm going to throw it to Ryan. Who is your number 4?
You took the words out of my mouth. Keely Ringo's my number 4 guy as well.
Nice.
The thing I kind of like about him the most is that 6'2" size. That's really nice for an outside corner. And I'll gladly hitch my wagon to any player that plays defense for the University of Georgia. He might be the best, I think, overall player from that bunch from last year, which was arguably the best college football defense of all time. Teams just refuse to throw his way. It's one of those things where corner, unless you're getting burnt, I feel like if your name isn't being said on the broadcast, you're having a nice afternoon. You'd rather not be noticed than be consistently noticed as a cornerback, because that means they're seeing the back of your jersey and you're getting burnt down the sideline. So he also had that big game-sealing pick 6 in the national title game, which was a play that sticks out in my mind about him. And I think he's a guy who's going to run in the high 4.2s and the low 4.3s. Like you said, a track guy in high school running in the 4.3s. I think that he might be a beneficiary from running the 40 at the combine and maybe even be like a top 5 pick when it's all said and done. He's my clear-cut top corner in this year's draft.
I fully agree. This is like one of those guys that if like this guy has potential of like falling like in that 10 range and the Eagles have like the number 4 pick and a team really wants CJ Stroud and trade back to like a 10 or 11 range and get a guy like that would be a home run scenario for the Eagles. LJ, who is your number 4?
I'm going to give you 4 and 3. I would put Keely Ringo for 3 because that's why I have at 3. But number 4, Jared Verse, the defensive end from Florida State. He has 6.5 sacks this year, and the Eagles are going to prioritize edge, whether it's in the draft or probably not free agency, because again, as we mentioned, they're going to have to pay Jalen Hurts. So who knows? While they'll have cap room, they're going to want to also extend guys, Gardner Johnson and whatnot. So I think that if they can get an edge in the draft, and he's not my favorite edge because that's coming up, but I think Jared Verse has a chance to be a guy that the Eagles could target. If Will Anderson goes in the top 3 and they have the 7th, 8th, 9th pick, wouldn't shock me if they went that route. But yes, I'll go Verse from Florida State.
Right, that's the shocker of the top 10. I think there it is. He's probably like my edge 6 at this point. It's fine. I'm just saying. All right, Jared Verse, and then LJ has Keely Ringo. Ryan, who's your number 3? LJ, do you want to talk on Ringo at all?
I mean, you guys said everything. Do you think he's as good or could be as good as Sauce Gardner?
No. Well, that's a great show in itself. I mean, Sauce Gardner was like my number 2 prospect in the draft last year.
And he wasn't even the first corner taken. That was Derek Stingley.
Yeah, it's nuts. So I was super high on Sauce last year. I think it's pretty close. I think it would be pretty close. If you're just talking like draft stock wise, I think Ringo will probably be more than likely in the top 5. I thought Sauce was a hands down, like he was top 3 for me. So me personally, I think Sauce is better than Ringo, but that's just my take. All right.
I love Sauce though.
Oh, he's so a stud. Good. He's just a straight stud. Everyone saw it. Like, all right. Ryan, who's your number 3?
All right. This is where I'm gonna go full in on the defensive line in the trenches. I'm going with Myles Murphy, edge rusher, 6'5", 275 pounds. You don't see much guys at that size move the way he does. This goes back to my initial point where Eagles have a bunch of nice, good players across the defensive line, but they don't have that elite piece. And I think Myles Murphy, as well as the other guys I'll get into, have the chance to be that game-changing type guy. Look at defensive ends like Joey, Nick Bosa, Myles Garrett, TJ Watt. They're just so hard to come by. And if we are fortunate enough to be selecting in the top 5 with the already talent we have across this team, I think this would be one of those kind of no-brainer selections if he's on the board there. He's got that rare blend of size, speed, athleticism, power, where he can beat you in multiple fashions. And he's got 6.5 sacks this year, and it's across a defensive line that's going to feature multiple guys that a few guys that we've already talked about. And I think they'll probably get 3 or 4 guys in the first round off this defense alone. So it's not a big sack or a statistical kind of guy just because he has so much talent around him as well. But you can see it with him. He has that game-wrecking edge rush kind of game-changing potential. And I really would like a guy like him to go with Josh Sweat and Hassan Reddick long-term.
Yeah, I'm just going to throw it in. My number 3 is Myles Murphy. Absolutely love this guy. Just a freak of nature athlete. I was kind of talking about who's Trey Walker of this draft. It's Myles Murphy. Scouts are going to just fall in love with this guy at the combine. But the thing is, I think Murphy's ahead of Trey Walker in many respects. He's just a monster, man. You look at this guy, great handwork. He's not like overly reliant on a bull rush like Trey Walker was. He's got a much bigger repertoire. Myles Murphy's got elite acceleration, great raw power and strength. Myles Murphy's awesome. We have a Cowboys fan in the chat. Get out of here. Get out of here. I love weed. What's going on, man? But anyway, Myles Murphy would be a home run pick for the Eagles if they're fortunate enough to get him. Love him. Let's finish out our top 3. We are now into number 2. Number 2, LJ. Who you got?
So I'm pretty sure we're all going to have the same top 2, just probably in a different order. I'm going Jalen Carter from Georgia. And it's amazing. You look at that Georgia defense. How many guys got drafted in the first round last year? 6. And then Nakobe Dean got drafted in the 3rd round. And the defense at Georgia this year might be better. That could also be the teams that they've played that aren't very good. But it's amazing the job that Kirby Smart has done in recruiting on the defensive side of the football. And then if you draft Jalen Carter and sit him next to Jordan Davis on that defense, good luck. He would just be a man among boys and right next. And then I would fully 100% expect Nakobe Dean to be starting next year. So you'd have that Georgia defense in the middle of your defense right there.
Yeah.
I don't know if any team's going to be able to run on us. I wish we had it now. Like we're giving up all these rushing yards now. That wouldn't happen next year. So I'm going Jalen Carter as my number 2 guy.
Love it. What about you, Ryan?
I got Bryce Young. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, I was about to say.
No, I got
about putting him in my top 10.
I got Carter as well. He's another guy where if you look at his numbers, not exactly the most eye-popping stats, but kind of like we said with Brian B. When you're at an interior lineman, it's more so about wrecking plays at the line of scrimmage and just making yourself feel like a disruptive force. Unless you're Aaron Donald, it's hard to put up crazy numbers. Even when you look at Fletcher Cox, I think he might have only cracked 1 double-digit sack season in his career, and he's a borderline potential Hall of Famer. If not a multiple-time All-Pro and Pro Bowl guy. But his fingerprints are all over the game, and I think he might be that best guy across the defensive line that had Jordan Davis, had Trayvon Walker. And I like his potential as a pass rusher going forward from the inside. I think he's only going to get better, and playing next to Jordan Davis, allowing him to focus on the run and kind of freeing up Jalen Carter to get after the passer a little bit more would be a welcoming addition to Philadelphia, to say the least.
Yep, I could not agree more. So I'm going to just say my number 2, and I knew this was coming, and I'm just going to play devil's advocate. But my number 2 is Will Anderson. I'm going Will Anderson with my number 2. I love Will Anderson, don't get me wrong. But I do think it's more of a 1A, 1B situation. I absolutely love Jalen Carter, and I'll touch on him in just a little bit. I think the biggest thing, I'll say it now. I think the biggest thing is you look at the edge position in this draft, and you look at the interior defensive line in this draft. There's a huge gap. There's a huge difference between these 2 positions. I think interior defensive line is a huge need for the Philadelphia Eagles. But after like Carter and Brian B, like there was a massive gap. There was a huge gap that maybe could have another first rounder, but it's not deep at all. When you look at edge, you've got Murphy, you've got Jared Verse, you've got Nolan Smith, BJ Ojolari, Tyree Wilson. The list goes on and on. That guys that I think will probably be first rounders and round 2 guys. So that's why I'm going to put Jalen or Will Anderson as my number 2 guy here. He's not had the kind of elite year that he did last year, but that's expected because teams prepare for him every single week. But his numbers are still good. He's tied for 10th in all of college football with 14 tackles for losses. He's got 8 sacks. His explosiveness, strength, and finishing ability are all elite. Just a straight unicorn at the position. I would love Will Anderson to death opposite Josh Sweat. Nothing would make me happier, but that is my selection as of now. This is all going to change. It's all fluid. So let's go into your number 1, LJ. Go ahead.
Mr. Will Anderson from Alabama. Look, you mentioned how he's had a down year this year, and he has, but I think the expectations were so high for that Alabama defense, it was going to be impossible for them to live up to those expectations. They would have to play Georgia level defense like they did last year for that to happen. He's had a couple like stinkers where like the Texas game, he had like 6. It felt like he had 5 offsides. He had a personal foul. It was very uncharacteristic. But it's also been the Alabama defense this year where they had, I think, 17 penalties that game. It was ridiculous. But Will Anderson can do everything. He can rush the passer. He can play against the run. He even I don't condone this, but he can drop back if needed. I hate when I see Hassan Reddick and whatnot do it, but Will Anderson would be the perfect fit across from Hassan Reddick next to Jordan Davis and whoever Milton Williams and whoever else we bring in here to play defensive tackle. Will Anderson would be the perfect guy for this defense and whoever our defensive coordinator is going to be next year. And again, we need to infuse the defensive line with youth. As Ryan has said multiple times, Fletcher Cox is old. He's going to be gone. Javon Hargrave probably will be gone. Maybe could come back if it's a team-friendly deal, but we'll see. Robert Quinn will be gone. Brandon Graham will be gone. They need to get younger, and it would be a great start with Will Anderson.
Love it. What about you, Ryan?
Yep, Anderson's my clear-cut number 1 guy. I really like Carter a lot, but I think there is a clear gap between him and Anderson. To me, watching him, he is a less bulked up like Khalil Mack, where he's such an effective run defender, multiple tackles for loss in the run game. And then last year, 17 and a half sacks. And even this year, 8 sacks facing double, triple teams. Like LJ said, he's consistently being the guy that this Alabama defense is kind of game planned against. Let's do everything away from him, and he's still finding his way to havoc. He's that game-changing piece that you add to the defense to really take that group to the next level, to the next notch. And I think he's another guy where I'm a former basketball player, but he's the guy that's like the point guard that makes everyone around him better just because he's on the field and his presence. That's going to open up so much other things for those young, talented pieces that we still do have across the defensive line. If we somehow found a way to get him really bottom out and the top 2 picks go like Stroud and Young or Levis Young, whatever it happens to be, and we're sitting there at 3 and he's there, you run up to the table and you don't think twice about it with Anderson from Alabama on the card.
Man. We'll see. Absolutely love Will Anderson. But yeah, real quick on Jalen Carter before we wrap it up. The reason I like him so much is I think Jordan Davis is an absolute stud. But having a guy like Jalen Carter, 6'3", lightning quick, first step, great acceleration, can play all 3 downs. It just is a no-brainer, an absolute no-brainer to pair that guy next to Jordan Davis. So that wraps it up. I'm going to share my screen to kind of show where we're at here. There we go. All right. Here is our top 10. Will Anderson gets 2/3 of the vote for number 1. Jalen Carter, 2/3 of the vote for number 2. Miles Murphy got a lot of love. Love that. Keely Ringo did as well. let's do quick reactions. LJ, what's your quick reactions to our top 10 rankings?
I think we all are in agreement that the Eagles are going to do something on the defensive line. They have to. And I honestly think that if they do keep the Saints pick, if they get the Will Anderson, Jalen Carter, that whatever their pick is, whether it's 25 or 31, they'll trade that. They only have 6 picks in this upcoming draft. We've talked about Jalen Hurts getting money. This defense is going to look different. So they're going to want to recoup picks in day 2, maybe day 3, and try to continue to bring in young talent. So it wouldn't shock me if they only used one of their first-round picks. And then, like Ryan said, we still have that extra second-round pick next year from the Saints, too, in 2024. And in 2024, the name to watch out for, and I think if you watched that LSU game this past weekend, Harold Perkins, I know we do not value the linebacker position, but damn, he could be Micah Parsons.
He's he's just at the ball every single play.
So he'd be a guy that if I'm the Eagles, you draft the Will Anderson, Jalen Carter, and then you get somebody to put next to the Kobe Dean with Jordan Davis and whoever. The defense would just be good and young for years to come.
Yep. Ryan, any reaction to our rankings?
Yeah, just one little thing. Kind of seeing both Skoronski and then the offensive tackle as well from Penn State on there. The one thing that I kind of was thinking about throughout this whole process is, other than Lane Johnson, which might even be the best guy across the line, the Eagles have really found value, whether it be in free agency or in the middle rounds of the draft when it comes to offensive linemen. You look across the line, Mailata in the 7th, Dickerson 2nd, Kelsey the 6th, Semualu the 3rd, and then Johnson was a 1st. They're really good at scouting kind of that 2nd to 3rd round, where I think that they would prioritize more that defensive line up front, which we are clearly all in on, and potentially maybe even look at one of those secondary pieces, whether it's a safety or a corner, because long-term I think that's a position we need to address. And then going forward with the second rounder this year, or maybe even the second rounder that we have from the Saints in 2024, our own second rounder, that's where we might look to get that future right tackle. Because first round pick Andre Dillard, I also think of Danny Watkins. I can't think of any other first rounders that we use. We've definitely done better in the middle rounds than kind of our first round picks with those. So this was a fun thing, and I'm excited to see if we do this maybe come January, whenever the playoffs end, or hopefully in February, what this top 10 list would look like. But I think this was a good starting point for all of us.
Yeah, that's a great take, man. That is an absolute great take on tackle, because when you have a guy like Jeff Stoutland, you don't necessarily need an elite talent.
I hope Stoutland doesn't retire anytime soon.
I better not. He better not. That cannot happen. He's everything. I do like Skoronski, though. That's the one guy I've been kind of smirking about, and I'm really happy LJ had him on his list, because he's one of those guys that I could just see how we just immediately take it. He'll be one of those picks where we probably won't get that excited because he's not a sexy name, but day one, just straight stud for a long time, and protecting Jalen Hurts is everything, of course. All right. I'm sorry, guys. My take is I don't see the Eagles going safety. As much as I would love to see them go safety, it's never going to happen. I'm a guy who's wanted, I've been in love with so many safety prospects in the past. It never freaking happens. Jordan Battle, Brian Branch, I like those dudes, but I just save it now and just kind of forget them because it's not happening. That's about it. I think we did really well. The Kayshawn pick was kind of out there. A wide receiver, that was probably another surprise. But anyway, let's wrap it up. We'll throw it to you, Ryan. Time for plugs. Where can we find you, man? What do you got going on at Pick Swap Media?
So I am the host of the Beef Up Front podcast. I do everything from NFL previews, NBA previews, NBA draft, college football, kind of all that stuff over on the channel. So there's a lot of sports-specific guys over there. I feel like the national type of thing for us. We're a growing channel. I'm excited the direction we're going. So at Pick Swap Media on YouTube, and then my personal stuff is at Beef Up Front. You can find us on Apple and Spotify. Really appreciate you guys having me on, and I look forward to hopefully getting the chance to come back.
Absolutely. Sean is my guy, man. Sean does our Sixers post game shows with us here, and he's such a good guy. Ryan, again, thank you. You were amazing.
Good job, Ryan. Thank you.
Can't wait to do more for the future.
Sure. Thanks, guys.
All right, Kelly Green Hour time. LJ, what's going on, man?
Connor and I will be on tomorrow night at 6:30 to get to preview the Eagles Colts game. Hopefully, it's better than the Washington game. And then we also do the reaction show on Tuesdays around 6:30 as well. So catch us Tuesday nights and Friday nights every week. You can follow our Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. You can follow me on Twitter at LJHurrell54. Connor's on Twitter at Connor10. But yeah, give us a listen or give us a shout tomorrow.
Awesome stuff. My top 10 ranking videos will be coming out starting next week. I'm going to start with edge and interior defensive line because those are the two positions I'm most fascinated by. I did them last July, so I'm going to basically just update them. So there will be 8 to 10 minute videos like I've done, and I'll do every position of need for the Eagles basically until the combine hits, and then they'll all change and get thrown out the window as expected. But Party on Broad will be on Monday next week. Again, probably just more of a reaction to the Eagles game. And yeah, that's basically it. Follow my man LJ over there at LJHerald54 for everything Philadelphia Eagles, NFL, you name it. And my man from Pick Swap Media at Ryan Coyle35. Check out Pick Swap Media on YouTube, wherever you get your content. For LJ, for Ryan, for myself, stay awesome, everyone. Thank you for watching. See you next time on Party on Broad.